All right, this is where we left off after video 1. So we are now on video 2, where we're going to try our best in order to be able to set up an actual web page that shows content that we want. So the first thing that we're going to need to do, a quick reminder, we had introduced GitHub, we had introduced Git, and we had introduced Vercel and created accounts last video. Now we're going to go and we're going to actually have to download an AI service that we want to use. I, again, have used Claude. You can use whatever you want, but this is going to center mostly around Claude. So what I would like to actually jump into here is talking about a little bit the difference between Claude web app as well as desktop. I'm going to use desktop. You can kind of use both if you would like to. The first step is to go to claude.download if you want to download it for your computer, which is what our setup has been. You can download for Windows. Alternatively, you can use the web app, which would take you to, Claude.ai. You will have to pay for this service if you want to get access to Claude code. I believe it's $20 per month, unless things have changed since I originally signed up. I'm on a different plan because my usage is significantly more than what you would be using as a hobbyist, but you can do that however you see fit. Now, one quick difference between the two. If you use Claude web app, which is right here, Claude AI code versus what would be the Claude desktop. I'm just going to drag it over here, which is actually living on your computer. You will see two very, very different things. Number one is if this is the actual application, which you can see running down here, when I decide to create a new Claude code session, I will get to choose a folder structure. And I can pick anything that I need to in here. And I would go into here and I would select a folder. Versus if I was in the web app, what I would see is select a repo. And the difference between that is that on the web app, I will be connecting directly to GitHub. And there is nothing going to be stored locally on my computer. Therefore, GitHub is acting as the folder structure about how we organize everything. When we download it to our computer, we are going to rely on a folder structure, just a standard folder structure here to store everything. And then we will sync that or rip that from our computer into GitHub using Git, which we installed last time. So I'm going to go through that process to really explain. But if you use the web app, you can kind of skip this. This series will focus a little bit more on using the actual desktop. So I'm going to click into here and say, I want to make this local. I'm going to open this. I haven't yet created the folder, so I'm going to create a new folder. I have my Claude projects stored in Claude projects. So I'm going to go into here. I'm going to create a new. I'm going to create a folder, and we're going to call this mortgage calculator. Okay. And I'm going to select that as my folder that I would like to operate in. So, and it's going to ask you immediately whether or not you trust this workspace. I do. And that's just saying whether or not it can change folders or change files within that space. So once I have done that, the next thing that we have to actually talk about is that we need to connect this to the repo that we have already created on GitHub. So I am going to have to write that command out. This is assuming you've already installed everything. You've gone through the first video and you've set everything up. So I'm going to type this in and say here, I want to clone this repository into the current folder, not into a subfolder, and it's telling me what the actual mortgage calculator is, or on GitHub. So I'm going to let this process for a little bit. One thing I will specify is that in the early days of using this, it's going to ask you for a lot of permissions. Realistically, you're operating in a folder that you have defined that nothing else is visible in. It's going to have to change a lot of things in there. It's going to change a lot of things in there, which are not going to be a big problem because you've basically taken everything that you're going to be building for that project and put it into one separate space that has nothing to do with anything else on your system. It's not a huge problem. And don't treat it as such. There's not a lot of things that you have to be worried about unless you're building large-scale apps. Most of the stuff you're building for yourself. Anyways, I jumped into here. We've now cloned this successfully, and this should now be available in there. So the next step that we have to do is actually to try to get something live. So what I want to do is give it some plain information. I want to see if it will allow me to change what I already see over here into something that is content that I've created. So I came up with a quick prompt and I said, I wanted to create a simple page with mortgage calculator as the heading and coming soon underneath. That's it. Just plain HTML and CSS. And you're going to basically run with this. And it's going to create an index file, which is the main file that everything is going to kind of read off of if nothing else is there, because right now all we have is the read. And it's going to create it and commit and push. We haven't necessarily set up a proper PR system. It's going to ask me permissions. I'm just going to allow it for now. We haven't set up a good PR system. And basically what this is documentation that basically talks about every push or commit is the word they will technically use in order to be able to store your files and store your changes and track your changes through GitHub. Claude has to interact with something, and it is going to interact with GitHub in order to be able to service the internet. So GitHub is going to contain all of this information, and then Vercel that is directly connected to it is going to read off of GitHub. So I've created something. It's not that great, but this should be available, and let's go and see if it is going to be picking it up. So you'll see it created the index.html. It has created styles, and then we can actually go through the next part of actually building that mortgage calculator next. But let me just go back to our page over here. I'm going to jump over to Vercel, which is where we started. Let's go look at our deployments. And deployments is basically Vercel's saying that it has taken the information from GitHub that we just pushed there using Claude. And it's saying, okay, now let's take all those ingredients and the two files that you said, let's read the instructions and let's put that in the oven and let's launch that and service it. So if I go to my deployments, I should see a deployment here, add a placeholder landing page. That happened about 1 second ago. Perfect. So if I go back to my overview, I have my original domain, which is right here, mortgage calculator. And if I refresh this page, there we go. So in hopefully under 5 minutes, I haven't really been keeping track. I have now made sure that I have downloaded and installed Claude. I've switched over to Claude Code. I've created a folder on my computer that is now going to be managing these files. I have allowed that folder to sync with GitHub, which is going to store those online to make it accessible to Vercel. And then Vercel has taken that and deployed that online. And just to show you really quickly that we're doing this, let's change it to coming next week. Okay, so just adding a little other step in here, which is going to say that it has to now recreate that file for us. It has to push that to GitHub. We have to enable that, and then it is going to serve that online. I can let this run. It will take a few seconds, and what you will see the second that it's committing, you'll see it's editing the file. It is committing it, and it's saying, "Do you want me to push this?" Yes, I do. I want to push this and serve it live. So if I come back to here and I jump over to deployments, I should be able to see a new deployment happening relatively soon. It could be in the build phase currently. I'm just going to check to see where it is. Do a branch plus PR, or just move it into placeholder copy. Just push that, open a PR, override it. That's fine. All right, so it's just basically saying, do we want to completely overwrite what we have at this point, or do we want to keep something separate? I'm going to allow it to push. And within a few seconds, if you go to this website right here, mortgage-calculator-8-phi.vercel app, you will see that being updated. And right there, you'll see the fixed page is now ready. It might have already been deployed. It takes a few seconds in order to do that. Coming out next week. Perfect. And that's it. Now we have something that we can actually modify directly using Claude. We can ask it to push this live. And next video, we're going to actually start building the actual calculator. Stay tuned.